Every night at exactly 3:13 a.m., someone appeared in the window across the street. At first, I thought it was just a person, and then I realized the house had been empty for 7 years. I live in a quiet neighborhood outside Portland, Oregon. Nothing unusual ever happened there. The kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked, neighbors wave at each other, and everyone knows which houses belong to who. My bedroom window faced the street. Directly across from my house was an old gray 2-story home that had been abandoned for years. Nobody knew much about what happened there. The owner disappeared, the house was left behind, and eventually everyone stopped talking about it. The grass grew over the sidewalk. The paint started falling apart. The windows were always covered by old, dusty blinds. It looked like nobody had entered that house in years. I never cared about it. Until one night, I woke up suddenly at 3:13 a.m. I don't know what woke me up. There was no noise, no footsteps, and no sound outside. I just opened my eyes and immediately felt like something was wrong. I looked toward my window. The street was completely empty. The only light came from a flickering street lamp near the sidewalk. Then I noticed something. One of the windows in the abandoned house was open, the second-floor window. I stared at it because I knew that wasn't normal. Those blinds had been closed for years. Then I saw a person standing there, completely still and just looking at me. My entire body froze. I grabbed my phone and zoomed in with the camera. The image was blurry, but I could see the shape clearly. A head, shoulders, a person standing in the darkness. I tried to explain it to myself. Maybe someone broke into the house. Maybe a homeless person was staying there. Maybe I was half asleep and imagining things, but there was one detail I couldn't ignore. The person wasn't moving. They weren't looking around. They weren't acting like someone who was lost. They were only watching my window. I lowered my phone for a second. I looked away. When I looked back, the window was empty and the person was gone. I stayed awake for the rest of the night. The next morning, I decided to check the house. I needed proof that someone had been there. When I crossed the street, I immediately noticed something strange. The front door was locked. The windows were covered in dust. The grass around the house was untouched. There were no footprints, no broken windows, no signs that anyone had entered. I looked through the front window. The room was empty, completely empty. When I got back home, I checked the picture I took. I expected to see nothing. Just a dark, blurry window. But when I zoomed in, I felt my stomach drop. The person was there, but they weren't standing where I remembered. In the picture, they were much closer to the glass, almost touching the window. And their face wasn't looking at my bedroom anymore. It was looking directly at the camera. I couldn't stop thinking about that picture. I spent hours trying to find a normal explanation, a reflection, a shadow, a camera mistake. Anything that made sense. But every time I looked at the image, one detail bothered me. The person was standing too close to the glass, like they moved forward after I took the picture. For the next few nights, nothing happened. The windows stayed dark. The blinds stayed closed. I started convincing myself that I had imagined everything. Then 4 days later, my security camera sent me a notification. Motion detected. I opened the app expecting to see an animal. Instead, I saw a person standing in my driveway. They were facing my house. I immediately sat up in bed. The camera showed someone wearing dark clothes standing completely still near my front door. I checked the live view. Nobody was there. I turned on the outside lights. The driveway was empty, but when I opened the recording again, the person was still visible, standing there, watching my bedroom window. I called the police. While I waited, I watched the footage again and again. Then I noticed something that made me uncomfortable. The way the person stood, the angle of their head, the position of their arms. It was exactly the same as the person from the abandoned house. Same posture, same unnatural stillness. When the officer arrived, he walked around my property and checked the area. He found nothing. no footprints, and no signs someone had been there. He watched the security footage and looked confused. Then he asked me, "Are you sure this is live footage?" I told him yes. The timestamp was from minutes ago, and he looked at the screen again, and then he said, "Why is this person only looking at your bedroom?" I didn't answer, because I already knew. They weren't watching my house, and they were watching me. The next morning, I decided to investigate the abandoned house. I searched everything I could find online. Property records, old news articles, local forums. After a few hours, I discovered something. The house had been empty because the previous owner disappeared. His name was Mark Ellis. 7 years earlier, police found his car abandoned near the house. His wallet was still inside, and his phone was still charging. But Mark was never found. I kept searching, and then I found an old neighborhood website with pictures from a community event. The pictures showed the street years ago. People standing outside, kids playing, and neighbors talking. Everything looked normal, until I noticed the abandoned house in the background, the second-floor window. The same window. I downloaded the picture and zoomed in. My hands went cold. Someone was standing behind the glass. The same person, the same face, the same empty expression. But the date of the photo was impossible. It was taken 11 years ago. I stared at my screen, trying to understand what I was seeing. Then my phone vibrated. Another security alert. Motion detected. This time, the notification wasn't from outside. It came from inside my house. I opened the live feed. My hallway appeared on the screen. The lights were off. Everything looked normal. Then a person slowly stepped into view. They were standing at the end of the hallway, facing the camera. I couldn't breathe, because I recognized that face. It was the person from the window, the person from the old photo, the person who had been watching me. Except now, they weren't across the street anymore. They were inside my house. I dropped my phone on the bed, and for several seconds I couldn't move. I was staring at the live camera feed, watching someone stand inside my house. But the strangest part wasn't that they were there. It was that they weren't doing anything. They were just standing. The same way they stood in the abandoned house, the same way they stood in the old photograph. Like they were waiting for me to notice them. I grabbed my phone and slowly opened my bedroom door. The hallway was dark. My camera showed someone standing there, but when I looked with my own eyes, nothing was there. I checked every room, the kitchen, the living room, the bathroom. Everything was empty. The front door was still locked. All the windows were closed. There was no possible way someone had entered. Then I looked back at the camera footage. That's when I noticed something I missed before. The person wasn't standing in my hallway. They were standing in front of a window, my bedroom window, the same window that faced the abandoned house. I slowly walked toward it, and I saw the face again. Across the street, second floor, the abandoned house. The person was standing there, looking directly at me, but this time, they did something different. They raised one hand. They weren't waving, they weren't threatening me, they were pointing behind me. My heart started racing. I didn't want to turn around. Every part of me was telling me not to. But I did. There was nothing there. Only my empty bedroom. When I looked back at the window, the face was gone. The police arrived a few minutes later. They searched the abandoned house again. This time they found something, a chair. It was placed directly in front of the second floor window, facing my bedroom. On the chair was an old camera. The officer turned it on and started looking through the photos. At first, everything seemed normal. Pictures of my house, my front door, my backyard, my windows. Then the photos changed. They were pictures of me, leaving for work, cooking dinner, sitting on my couch, sleeping. I felt sick. Someone had been watching me for a long time, but then I saw the last photo, and it was taken that same night. A picture of me sleeping in my bed. I looked at the officer. That's impossible. Nobody had been inside my room. Nobody could have taken that picture. The officer didn't say anything. He just kept scrolling. There were hundreds of photos, different days, different months, different years. And in every picture, the same person appeared somewhere in the background, sometimes in a reflection, sometimes behind a window, sometimes hidden in darkness, always watching. The police searched the entire house. They found no person, no evidence that anyone had lived there. Only the camera, only the pictures, and one message carved into the wall. 3 simple words: look back. I moved out the next day. I never returned. For months I tried to forget what happened. Eventually I convinced myself it was over. Until last week, and I was unpacking an old box from my previous house when I found the picture I took that first night. The blurry photo of the window. I almost threw it away, and then I noticed something I had missed before. In the reflection of my bedroom glass, there was someone standing behind me. Not across the street, and not in the abandoned house, behind me, and inside my room. That was when I understood. The face in the window was never watching me from the other house. It was showing me where it already was. And last night at exactly 3:13 a.m., my new security camera sent me another notification. Motion detected. I opened the live feed. The camera was pointed at my bedroom window. Outside stood the same person, still silent, watching. But this time, I wasn't looking at the window across the street. I was looking at my own reflection.